Good morning and welcome. Thank you all for being here today. Um, today is Tuesday, December 12th, 2023, and we are here in our hearing room for the Board of County Commissioners at our Larimer County Administrative Services Building. We welcome you. I call this meeting to order. We're here for our Administrative Matters meeting, where we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask you all to stand and join me for the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for joining me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Again, welcome to our Administrative Matters meeting. I am Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shag McNally, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, and I welcome you all to our meeting, whether you're in person or online. Joining me at the dais today are my colleagues, Larimer County Commissioner Kristen Stevens and Larimer County Commissioner John Kafalis. Also helping us out and joining us in this meeting is our clerk to the board, who is Heather Armont. Did I get that correct, Heather? Thank you. Also, our county manager, Lorenda Volker. Good morning, Lorenda. We have Tom Clayton from our Public Information Office and Sarah Martin from the Commissioner's Office, who helps us with a variety of things, and we appreciate all her work that she does for us in so many ways. So, we have a lot on our agenda today. First, I want to just thank everyone. We have several public comments that we have received online. I'm not going to read those public comments. There's several of them, but they were all pertaining to property tax and mill levies. We also have several folks who have signed up for public comment. I think we will start with folks who are in the room. And so we will look for, so we're going to take public comment. If you're part of a presentation today, you do not have to sign up for public comment. You're just part of the agenda. So I want to make sure everyone understands the process for public comment. Public comment is a chance to address the Board of County Commissioners. You will have 3 minutes, and we hold fast to that time. And you will need to come up to the podium and identify yourself and where you're from. So we'll start with, again, I want to start with not the Collins, but the folks in the room. So I see we have Mr. Freeman. Mr. Freeman, if you could come up to the podium, identify yourself, where you live, and you'd have 3 minutes. Welcome. Thanks for your public comment.
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you this morning, and I appreciate all the things that you folks do. Behind the scenes, we appreciate all the time you put in, all of you folks, and it's nice to see so many people in the audience. My name is Rick Freeman. I live in Wellington, Colorado. I've been a resident in Larimer County since 1960, where I was a graduate of the only high school at the time, Fort Collins High School, and CSU graduate, and just wanted to express my thoughts this morning. I hope they come across accurately and informative. Not too long ago, there was a proposition HH voted on, and Larimer County and all of Colorado voted it down substantially. I think it was very obvious that the people did not want it. However, now we have new legislation putting in place essentially the same taxation program that we voted down. To me, that seems real close to taxation without representation, which is what this country originally started and was founded on. Now, you folks have put together a very comprehensive budget for the county. You've put in a lot of time on it, and it seemed to me like it was very responsibly done. It accounted not only for keeping our county strong, but also allowed for the county to expand, because we can't just stand still. And I've been very proud of this county and the way that they handle themselves. And the past county commissioners have done a good job of that as well. But being very responsible, I thought it worked. But I'm also now looking at increase taxes way above and beyond what this county proposed needing to meet the needs of this county. The effects on this is staggering. It puts a knife in the middle of almost everyone's budget. I don't care if you're a struggling family that can't hardly put food on the table, or you're like me, you're retired and you have very limited income and I've put money aside thinking that I was doing a responsible thing, and now I feel we have a very irresponsible tax preparation legislation. So the effects is on almost every taxpayer, especially homeowners and business owners. So please consider, and I know you will, but please consider carefully the ramifications of the new tax proposal, and do what you can to make this fair for everybody. And thank you for your time, though. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk.
Thank you, sir, for your public comment. I will now ask for Mr. Raymond Lucas. Yes, thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. Sometimes I have trouble reading all of people's, but
That's
please.
Okay. My writing's not the greatest.
No, you're fine. Welcome, and please identify yourself and where you're from. You have 3 minutes for public comment.
I'm Raymond Lucas, and I live at 1095 Hawkshead Street in Timoth, Colorado. I was aware of the laws being passed at the end of session this year at the state. Those laws affected taxing in Colorado. They affected the evaluation of your property, how we do it, and things of that nature is my understanding. And I was watching and listening to it at the Capitol when it happened. Now, here's what amazed me. 2022, the year before that, I paid $9,200 in sales tax or in property taxes. 2022, I got a reduction of $200. Now, this year, when I get my deal, it's anticipated I'll go up to $11,710, a nearly $3,000 increase in taxes. My house is the same, nothing's changed. Yes, property values have went up till the 2021. Now they're falling. I just checked yesterday, 1.8% drop since last year. And yet, according to the state laws we passed, everybody's going to get another big increase this year. The little deal with HHH was put out as just a deal of saying that, okay, the taxpayers voted to get rid of this tax. I was going to get 0.5% of that back of the 30%. It was a joke. I do appreciate Larimer County. They've always seemed to be a strong county. And I appreciate you standing up and being honest about this stuff. I do the right thing with our laws and try to do what you can to help call these taxes down. I'm fortunate I can afford to pay mine, but I know a lot of people right now that can't do that. And it's going to affect all of us. And I see a lot of people talking about leaving this state now because they've lost all faith in it, mainly because of what's happening at the Denver Empire Capitol and the things that are going there. So I wanted to come this morning and let you know that it feels really wrong to people. We thought we were voting down something at HHH. I told them, I said, that does vote something down, but it doesn't solve the problem what happened at the end of session, the last day of session, down at the Capitol. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your public comment. Mr. Lindquist, please come to the podium, identify yourself and where you're from. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Gary Lindquist from Loveland, Colorado, property owner and landlord. Now, I'm somewhat shooting in the dark when I'm making statements here because I've had to base it on press releases rather than watching a formal presentation by your staff. But the estimated windfall tax collections could be as low as 11 million, but up to 43 million. And with this year's increase in valuations, the latter is probably closer to reality. So a steep hike in property taxes will result in increased rents, increased mortgage payments, as well as increased retail prices by businesses that must shoulder higher taxes. It won't fail to affect any portion of our economy here in northern Colorado. And this is terrible public relations when the government itself, while speaking about affordable housing and keeping costs of living at a reasonable level is in itself responsible for these increases in inflation itself. Now, this commission can head off the problem by adjusting the mill levy rate so the property tax collections will result in a maximum increase of 7% over 2021. Now, I'll assume the three of you, as well as myself, had the benefit of a college education. We had to study math extensively and business matters. Now, in my case, it looks like the rents will have to increase by $45 each on 2-bedroom units and $60 for 3-bedroom units. And mine are rather modest. They aren't, expensive luxury apartments. They're just standard units. Now, one half of my units are occupied by seniors that have Social Security as their main source of income. Keep in mind that the public expects you to act as their fiduciaries, and 2 of you will be running for re-election in the fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your public comment. We will now have Mr. Spindler come to the podium, please. You'd have 3 minutes for your public comment.
Good morning. William Spindler. I live on Wagon Tongue Drive near LaPorte. At the age of 23, I scraped together what little money I had and came up with a down payment and bought a home. And 45 years later, I'm still in that home, and I'm being told that the price of that home has increased nearly 12 times since I bought it. And that sounds like a wonderful thing, but there is no practical benefit to that great increase, except that it makes my homeowner's insurance go way up and, of course, my property taxes. And so I'm here to appeal to you to please lower the mill levy rate. The main source of income for my wife and I is Social Security, and the property tax that we pay is a substantial part of our budget, and so we ask you to carefully consider and substantially lowering that mill levy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your public comment. Next, I have Mr. Barrington, but Mr. Barrington, I don't know if did you want to do, so you're all signed up for the presentation. So, okay, so we're going to skip you and the other 2 colleagues. Okay, so we will go, so I'll go ahead. We have several who are calling in, but I think I'll stay in the room first, Sarah, just to kind of help with the transition. So I know there's several other folks. I will open this up to anyone else in the room who might want to make public comment. You'd have 3 minutes. Please come forward to the podium. I think I'll start with this gentleman on the left. If you'll come up, you'd have 3 minutes. You need to identify yourself. And since you haven't signed up, if you'll spell your name for the clerk and then identify where you live, the timer's on the thing. Thank you.
Fred Kropp, Kropp, and I'm out of Loveland, Colorado. And I just want to say it's so sad because you tell your kids, you tell everybody around you to vote, and you go vote, and Double H, which got turned down, that's what the people wanted. And then it seems like there's no point in it because the state comes behind you and changes that all. So I just don't understand where you're supposed to be in all that. And it doesn't make it, as far as affordability, we had workforce housing too in Larimer County. And between the taxes and the new codes and all of the new enforcement laws, nothing can be affordable. And you're just putting everything back into a corner. It's making it all, it's kind of like a tale of two cities, the book. And it's sad to be able to be on one side and then to speak your piece on the other side. Like, if federally it's that way, if you go to the state down in Denver, it's that way. And I just hope it won't be that way here in Larimer County. This has been such a great county to live in. We've been here for, oh gosh, over 30 years. And it's been a great place to be. And I just don't see how changing after we voted that, after the people have voted for that, that it absolutely is pointless because it comes behind you and changes everything that you stood for. And I would just appreciate you thinking about that. And thank you for your time and all the time that you put in as commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your public comment. Okay, gentleman in the back here in the middle. I'm going to work my way up. Come on up, sir, and if you would come to the podium and make your public comment.
Paul Gessler. I live in Fort Collins. I want to thank the commissioners for their ongoing support of my concerns and our county commissioner or county manager. Peace is possible. Our government appears to have lost its moral compass, and I could see it trying to infect our local government. I ask that county commissioners be present, at least one of you, this Thursday morning at 10 o'clock up in this building on the 5th floor, the Veterans Service Office, where I will demonstrate a simple but effective way for a veteran to claim conscientious objector status. Conscientious objector status can be a viable suicide prevention tool for veterans. As I will demonstrate, conscientious objection status can be retroactive to the time of one filing their DD-214 with the county. I will be inviting the Alliance for Suicide Prevention, Veterans for Peace, Peace Fellowship, and I extend that invitation to Emily Humphrey of Specialty Courts, our Specialty Courts facilitator, so I can demonstrate to her how a restorative justice court may possibly be set up. My second comment regarding the Veterans Together on the meeting on the third Wednesday. Could one of the commissioners be physically present at this meeting? And would it be possible to have our congressman be present at that meeting? And if not our congressman, could Shane Atkinson be present for that meeting next Wednesday? And you're all invited on the 5th floor this Thursday. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gessler, for your public comment. Okay. So now we'll start back on the middle with the lady in the red shirt and the red stripes. We'll start with you, and I'm working my way up. I have a process so I don't miss someone. Thank you for your patience. Please come up to the podium, identify yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, Commissioner Kafalas, Commissioner Stevens. My name is Lori Goebel, and I live in Loveland. And as you can see, I would rather be baking right now. Instead, I am here because of what is going on here in our state. We have lost sight of the people's will. Less than 1% relief at the state legislature, that's ridiculous. As you've already heard, and as you know the facts well, all of our property taxes are going to skyrocket because of the increased valuation. But I did graduate public high school, and I know that if one number goes up, you multiply it by another number, and if you lower that number, you can still get close to the same result of what was being charged before. My concern is for the people who are not here. Our children, our grandchildren, the people who can't take off work because they're probably working 2 jobs just to stay in their homes and to be able to live and afford to be in this area. They're living paycheck to paycheck. And as I mentioned before, are the people that are living on fixed incomes. I have a great little picture here, if I can pull it up. Kevin McAllister's grocery list in Home Alone cost $19.83. Last year, that same grocery list cost $44.40. This year, it costs a whopping $72.28. We see costs increasing all around us. I understand, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, you want to have a reserve. Well, we do too. Everyone here in this room, the people that are watching, we want to be able to have a savings. We need to have a reserve. So how is it proper for the government to overreach and pull from what I'm sure a lot of people are going to have to do is pull from their savings, pull from their retirement account, go work an extra job in order to be able to pay their property taxes? We can lower, you can, we all can lower that mill levy rate. And it not only helps young, it helps the old, it helps our children, it helps our grandchildren, it helps me, and it helps you. Everyone who owns property, it's equal across the board. If we don't realize a property value increase until we sell our properties. So you know what? Everybody wants to go to Grandma's for the holidays. But how sad it would be if Grandma no longer has a home because she can't pay her property taxes. Thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you for your public comment. We'll now go to the lady in the second row. Thank you for raising your hand. Come on up and please identify yourself, and you would have 3 minutes for public comment and where you're from also, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nancy Eason. That's E-A-S-O-N. I live on the northeast side, Fort Collins in the county, literally across the street. I had a whole thing prepared, and then I saw the article in the Coloradoan, so my comments are going to be based on what I saw there in the article this morning. I hope I did my calculations right. But looking at my property tax bill from 2 years ago, and then working with the mill levy and the new state rate and so on, what I saw is that my property tax is going to rise about $660. Again, that could change, depending, but that's the best number I've got for you. My valuation rose 30%. That was after a protest, but the average rise is about 40%. So what I think I'm going to see is a 17% rise in my tax. People who had a 40% raise in their valuation are probably going to see about a 22% rise in their property tax. That's assuming that none of the jurisdictions changed their mill levies. It's pretty much what it was 2 years ago. So I have no idea what the school district's going to do or anything. Anyway, that's a 22% rise over 2 years. And I'm pretty sure most people's wages have not risen that far in the last 2 years. So it's going to create a hardship. We already know a lot of people, you've heard what's going on. I can't believe what's happened to my homeowner's insurance in the last 5 years because of wildfires, hail, and rising values. Basically, affordable housing is kind of an oxymoron in northern Colorado and the Front Range in general. So I'm going to see an extra $54 a month if these numbers hold, which doesn't sound like that much, right? But it is, because my husband and I are on Social Security. And that means that's kind of my current eating out budget. I don't mean to be a sob story, but that's just the way it is, and it's okay. But every time something goes up, we have to look at everything and go, now what? Okay? So if there's anything you can do to have a temporary reduction further than you were planning. I know you talked about it earlier. Because of the state's change, you decided it wasn't necessary. I think it is. I think you should consider strongly. 22% rise in taxes is a lot in 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Okay, I will go to the down that second row. The lady has raised her hand, and then we'll go to the gentleman behind her. Please identify yourself and where you're from, and welcome. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amber Kelly, and I live in Imperial Estates, but I own a 24-unit apartment complex in Region Farms. And I just found out about this last night, so I haven't done a lot of research, but I'm just advocating for tenants. I've gotten to know my tenants really well, and I've lost teachers. They had to move to Texas because they don't think they can afford a home. I provide rent for 24 families at 60% AMI, and I'd like to keep it that way, but our property taxes on that property are 2 months' profit, and our cost to run that building, the last 2 months is the only time that we make profit because of the cost to just run it in this town. And so I'm just advocating, just please think about them. I've been talking with state and local legislation this entire year, so I don't have to raise rent this year because it's the thing I hate to do. And so I'm just here doing everything I can. So if I do have to raise rent, I can tell them why. So please consider these families, and I don't want to lose any more good public servants because they can't afford to live here. So I appreciate the support. I feel like as a housing provider, we've had a lot of legislation making things harder for us. And I would love to see some supportive measures because there are a lot of good-hearted people out there that want to provide shelter, but it's getting increasingly difficult. And I would appreciate your help.
Thank you for your public comment and being here today. Okay. Come on up, sir. Your turn. Please identify yourself. And where you're from, you'd have 3 minutes for public comment.
Okay. My name's Charlie Masurlian, and talk about the property tax debacle here. Now that Paulus got slapped down with his underhanded little move about trading out Tabor and all that, the obvious answer all along has been to take the mill levy and reduce it. And there's going to be a lot of ramifications if it doesn't get reduced. It's for example, I have a commercial warehouse I rent out, and the guy is right up against the limits of what he can pay at this rate. It's a triple net lease, and every few months I have to cut him some slack with the rent so he can pay me something. Now, when these property taxes go up, I don't know how that's going to work. It'd be a miracle if the guy keeps the door open. And it's just one tiny example. It's just going to snowball over and over and over. It's and then if this guy goes out, who else is going to move into this space? And this is just one tiny little portion of this county in the commercial end of things. It's really incumbent upon you people to lower this mill levy. That's been the answer all along. It's I don't see any way out of this mess unless you do that. And also, I know you guys are responsible for a fourth of the taxes, property taxes, and the school district portion is half of that, roughly. But I would think that you can use your influence to get on top of the school board to reduce their mill levy accordingly to stay in line with what their budget has been. So I would suggest you do that. So it's going to be if it doesn't happen, there's going to be consequences that it's just going to be awful. So that's what I got to say.
Thank you, sir, for your public comment. Okay, anyone else in the room? Last call. Okay, now we'll move on to our call-ins. So let's start with Miss Rosa.
Hello.
Good morning, Ms. Rosa. This is Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shai McNally, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners for Larimer County. We're calling you today because you have indicated you'd like to give public comment. Please identify yourself, where you're from. You'd have 3 minutes for public comment, and we'll help you know when you get close to that 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. This is Linda Rosa. I am a Loveland resident for 30 years. I'm speaking today to urge you to lower the county's mill levy that will, starting in 2024 and thereafter, contribute to sky-high property tax bills. It seems that the public was given the impression that the county was going to do a temporary reduction, but has changed its mind, which doesn't give the public much time to respond. I want to urge you to reverse course and do a permanent mill levy reduction with a reasonable increase for the next year and all the years thereafter. A whopping jump of 30% increase is simply not reasonable to inflict on taxpayers when the typical increase is more like 6 to 7%. This is going to hit the citizenry hard. These are hard times financially, as you've been hearing. People are hurting. They're already struggling to cope with large utility bills, the ever-increasing prices of food, housing, insurance, and for some, all those monstrous fees and taxes inflicted by metro districts. Reports are that the elderly are forgoing prescription meds in order to buy food. And Loveland reports 1/3 of district students come from families that are struggling with food insecurity. And on November 7th, Loveland citizens voted across the board for tax relief. What you call a surplus is really not a surplus to the people who are paying. I urge you to consider lowering the mill levy so that the county gets a reasonable increase, and $40 million doesn't sound like a reasonable increase. I hope you keep in mind that the most effective way to keep housing in the county from becoming less affordable is to be realistic about what citizens are able to pay in property tax. The people of Larimer County will expect their commissioners to cut this windfall down to a humane level. I will end on a cautionary note. It seems that the county believes it can legally collect this huge windfall because the county is debruced. But being debruced does not mean you can knowingly collect an excess amount of revenue. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Ms. Rosa, for your public comment. Okay, let's move on to the next call-in, please, Sarah.
Hi, thanks for calling Judy. Have a blessed day.
Okay, let's go on to the next one, Ms. Carr, and then we'll try Ms. Judy one more time.
This is Tasha.
Hello, Ms. Carr. This is Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shai McNally, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. And we're calling you today because you've indicated you'd like to give public comment. If you could please identify yourself and where you live, you'd have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, and thank you, Commissioners. This is Tasha Carr from Livermore. So why are we in this mess? The state legislature has been trying hard to gut Tabor and keep more of our taxes. And when the Gallagher Amendment was repealed, we were promised meaningful tax reform. And if Gallagher had still been in effect, it would have kept property taxes from skyrocketing by 30%. And rather than pass meaningful tax reform, the legislature brought us the son of Prop HH, even after the voters sent a clear message. We want to protect Tabor. We want you to ask the voters to raise our taxes. And we want meaningful property tax reform. So I ask you to listen to the voters. The legislature did not listen to us. They didn't do their job. Asking you to do the job they were supposed to do. The governor agrees that they passed the buck, and he has asked taxing authorities to lower their mill levies. So I'm repeating his message to you here today. Please lower the mill levy. This is not the time to take a windfall tax increase on the backs of taxpayers who are struggling. Inflation is eating away our buying power while our salaries are not going up. Our retirement is not up. Our house values may be going up, but that's not money we see in our pockets today. Our financial security is dying the death of 1,000 cuts, taxes and fees everywhere you turn. We have to make tough decisions about how to spend our money, and people living paycheck to paycheck are falling further and further into debt. And I'm even hearing about people having trouble making their payroll, so businesses are suffering as well. For these reasons, I'm asking you to lower your mill levy, lower the mill levy to correspond to a more reasonable tax increase that would have occurred had Gallagher still been in effect. Rather than a 6.7% property assessment, it should have dropped to about a 5% assessment rate. Again, this is not the time to take a windfall tax increase on the backs of taxpayers who are hurting. You have an opportunity to ease our pain. Please don't add to our pain. Please listen to the governor. Please listen to the taxpayers. And please lower the mill levy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carr, for your public comment. Okay, let's try Judy one more time. Okay, we've tried twice. Okay, so any other call-ins, Sarah?
No, that's it.
Great, and I know we had some other emails that have come in after our meeting started, and they're all related to property taxes and mill levy. So I'm not going to read those as well, but we will read through those later. We can't read those during the meeting, but we appreciate everyone, their engagement. So I want to just thank you all for being here today. We appreciate your engagement and coming in, participating in our public comment. That's a really important part of our democracy. And I appreciate everyone being respectful and making concise comments. So we will now, I think, whose phone is that? If we can turn that off so we can. Okay. So I will now close public comment, and I will let my colleagues see if they would like to make any comments regarding what was said this morning. We'll start with Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for coming out this morning. I appreciate, hearing all your comments and your stories too. I think that's really important. And to the person who, and I took a lot of notes, but I can't remember who exactly said this, but there are a lot of people that you're right, that aren't here. Do we think it's... Oh.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
No, it's all right.
I couldn't hear you projecting, so.
Is it not working then?
No. Okay.
Now it is?
Okay.
Okay. Weird.
We
Okay.
lowered the volume in trying to reduce the
Oh,
ring,
okay.
and
Well,
we inadvertently lowered your volume.
okay. Well, my voice is lowered. Okay. Okay. Well, here we go. We'll start again. Just thank you all for coming out this morning, and I appreciate hearing your stories. And as someone said, you represent other people who couldn't make it today, people that are working, people that are struggling. So I definitely, understand that. We haven't made any decisions yet, and we're going to hear. I hope folks will stick around because we have probably some answers to some of your questions coming in our discussion item around the budget of what changes that we've proposed. I know I'm very much hearing people's frustration with HH, and clearly was defeated at the ballot box. And we didn't ask for the state legislator to come back and do that. They did that of their own accord. So I just want to say that first of all. I think that there was some decrease of taxes, which I think was a good outcome. I know it's not exactly what people wanted, but there was some decrease at the state level, while leaving the Tabor refunds largely untouched. So I think that was a good outcome. It was only a year outcome. It was only a solution for a year. So there is a group that's working now, a task force. So that's working for a more permanent solution to kind of address this issue. I think folks are also aware that the valuations happened at the height of the market. And of course, right now, interest rates are high, and there's a number of reasons that are all of our homes are probably not worth as much as they were at that peak. So there's a lot of, I'm doing this all to say not to justify anything, just to really kind of set the groundwork of where we're at and why we're at where we're at. You'll hear about things in the budget that are happening. We haven't really increased. I mean, while there's somebody said we're increasing the size of government, there are almost no full-time employee increases in the current budget. So I just wanted folks to know that there's really not a lot of increases. A lot of our costs have obviously increased as well. We can talk about, I think our county manager has talked about the fact that it used to cost $1 million to resurface a road, and now it costs $2 million to resurface a road. So we've seen some of our costs double. In fact, our jail costs have doubled. And things like jail and a lot of the public safety measures are, I think, about half of our budget, and I'll let people correct me if I'm wrong. But and those are required, obviously, by the state. We have to keep a jail. We have to, have some of these services that are provided by the sheriff's office. And so, and some of our jail costs have also doubled. Feeding, food in the jail has doubled, and I think medical care in the jail has also doubled. There again, these are things that we're required by law to provide. So I just want to say that this board hasn't, in looking at our budget, we have really tried to keep things very, very trim. I mean, it is not our desire to spend a windfall or hire a bunch of people for services that we don't need to provide in our community. There again, a lot of our services are required by the state. The county is basically an arm of the state. That being said, I think we're going to look for what we can do here, because we do hear what you're saying. We do understand what you're saying. We don't have a desire to keep anything more. We are concerned about emergency situations. And I just want to put that out there that in emergency situations like a fire or a flood, we have to put out that money before we get reimbursed from anyone. So in situations that cost $10 million and $20 million and $50 million, we pull that out of our budget, and then we hope and wait that we will get reimbursed by the state or the federal government, FEMA, if you probably heard that acronym. And so that is some of our concern in looking at our budget, is that, I mean, we had a year last year that was good. We didn't have any fires over 200, 300 acres. We don't know what that looks like next year or the year after that. We are still waiting on millions of dollars from the 2013 floods. I think about $6 million.
Eight.
I think 8 million.
$8 million that we have not been reimbursed from the federal government for the 2013 floods a decade ago. So those are just, there again, I am not making apologies. I'm not making, excuses. I'm just saying, like, that's what we face too. And so we can't not say we're not going to put out the fire, or we're not going to, rescue people from the flood because we don't have enough money to do that. We're going to figure that out. But that when we say we're putting money aside, it's not for, you know, upgrades to the building. It's for protecting people in our community. And so in those parameters, we are still looking at ways to see what we can do about the mill levy, and we haven't made those decisions yet. And you'll hear more from our budget team, and they can speak much more eloquently than I am about some of these situations. But I just kind of wanted to set the groundwork for the fact that it's that there are some outstanding issues that we're trying to, tie up. But there again, I definitely heard what you're saying. I am sympathetic. I understand, and we are going to do what we can do to help you out. And I appreciate the stories, and it's very much does not fall on deaf ears to me. It's something that I have in my heart, that I've heard, the struggles that you're talking about, they're real. And we are going to do what we can to try to alleviate that, knowing that we are, as one of the folks said, only 25% of your budget, or 25% of your property tax goes to the county. A lot of it, and I don't know that the school board can make those kind of decisions, because they actually, I don't think, are getting more money necessarily, which is a weird dynamic. But I'll let people who are smarter than I am kind of finish that conversation. But I encourage you to stay around for the conversation that we'll have with our budget team later this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I see some people leaving, and I'm sure hoping that many of you are going to stay around. Our budget team has been working tirelessly for months, trying to track all these changes, and it would really, I think, be helpful and educational for you to listen in if you're really concerned about this issue. Commissioner Kafal, do you have comments?
Yes, although I'm going to save more detailed comments and questions for when we have our discussion with our budget folks. But I did want to start by saying that Judy, who tried to offer public comment this morning, and somehow the phone connection didn't work. But for the record, I'd like to share with folks her brief text message that I received yesterday. And her last name is Pappenfuss. But she texted me yesterday about 2:52 p.m. How are you? We consider ourselves to be friends. I'd like you to know that I'm against Larimer County using any of our tax money inappropriately. HH was defeated. The special session that Polis had was disgraceful. Please stay within Tabor guidelines. So I did want to share that with folks, because somehow we couldn't make the connection. In terms of the 10 people who offered public testimony this morning in person, and the 2 people on the phone, thank you. It is important what you did, and took the time to do that. There were various themes expressed that I think we'll get into when we have our discussion item. Thursday is when we have our budget hearing, and that's when we will formally adopt at least the expense side of the 2024 budget, and as well as a resolution regarding what's called ending balances. But the budget folks can get into that. So I just want to say thank you all for being here. It does matter. We will have a more robust discussion when this comes up in the discussion portion of our agenda. If there are folks who can't stay, because I think the point is well taken, that when we do these public meetings, these administrative matters meeting at 9 o'clock, folks who can't get off work, it's just really difficult, and that's something we've tried to figure out what's a better way to do this. But if you're not able to stay, all of this is broadcast, and there will be a recording. and I would offer, to view that when it's available, should be later today, to view that broadcast of the discussion if you can't stay, and then I'm more than happy to talk with folks, to follow up and meet with you, talk with you on the phone, to so if you have other questions, I do our best to answer them. That's all I have to say at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez, for your comments. Again, I want to echo, I'm trying not to be repetitive, but sometimes being the chair, being the last person to talk, you get to be repetitive. So I want to just thank you all for coming today. I think it's great that we had so much public comment. We really appreciate your engagement. It's great to hear your concerns. We've heard lots of concerns from emails from residents and phone calls. I even have lots of family living in Larimer County, and I hear from them as well because some of them are property owners, and of course, my older extended family also have concerns, and so we hear a lot from a lot of folks. And I just kind of want to address a few things. We're not trying to keep a windfall. I think several people have commented on that. We certainly work year round on the budgets. Every department comes through a process with our county manager and our budget team to share why and how, what is needed to keep services where they're at and the needs or things that we need to address in our county. As Commissioner Stevens stated, we're really not growing our size of government by hiring more folks. That the budget, I think, has got maybe one position, maybe the attorney, the victims, domestic violence prosecutor for the victims unit. And that's important because domestic violence is on the rise, and we need to be able to get those cases through the court system quicker for justice for victims and to have a quick resolution. And I'm sure you all agree with that. We are not, again, people are talking about, I've seen a lot of these emails talking about we're raising taxes. We're not raising taxes. Property values went up. And unfortunately, on June of 2022, we're at the height of the values that we've at the peak for home values. And we don't have control over home values or property values. So that is kind of something we don't have control over. As my colleagues have stated, we're only really responsible for 24% or less of the tax bills in your county. There's over 300 taxing entities in Larimer County. Not all of you are taxed by the same entities, and we don't have control over those. Mr. Lindquist, you know very well, in Loveland, some areas of Loveland, we're only 15% of the taxing bill, and I know you know that well. Some of those folks in metro districts, the metro district is quite a bit of a chunk, if not half of those property taxes, and unfortunately, we don't have any influence over that either. Trust me, everyone's been talking about property taxes, and we're all very aware of some of the consequences and challenges for all of us, as this has been unprecedented kind of coming of circumstances between the repeal of Gallagher, high property values, and all of that seemed to come together for something that's not a strain for all of us. We have been trying to make sure we're meeting the costs. We are having increasing costs in our county. I think you'll hear about that as with the presentation, especially as Commissioner Stevens stated in regards to our public safety and our jail. We statutorily have to meet those needs. So if we meet this, then we have to cut in other areas. And I think some of those proposed cuts that we have now looked to put back in, those were painful cuts. They weren't frivolous things. They were needs and things that we needed to put into our budget to meet the needs that we're seeing presently in our county. We do a lot of great things here in Larimer County. We have a lot of great programs, have great outcomes, and we're held as an exemplar for a lot of counties across the state. And that's, I'm not just saying that for myself. I heard that at the county commissioners conferences. We were giving a shout out for several of our programming and things that we're doing that also impact all of you in your daily lives. one thing that I want to say is someone talked about that we don't need reserves. As Commissioner Stevens stated, these aren't really reserves. These are our disaster recovery and resiliency fund. And this is something that Larimer County is known for, unfortunately. It is unfortunate that we are a high-risk county. It is not a case of if, but when the next disaster is going to come. And being someone lives in unincorporated parts of the county, and I know some people say I live in the county. Well, all of you live in the county, whether you live in the city or unincorporated parts. And when we have natural disasters and we have damage to our watersheds, your water quality and your air quality are impacted. We're all impacted by those disasters. The Black Hollow in 2021, just the debris alone, cleanup was projected at $7 million. That would take up most of those reserves. And thank goodness for the innovation and hard work of our emergency management team, emergency services. They found a way to figure out how to recycle or reuse some of that debris and had some volunteers and other agencies. So we cut those costs down. As Commissioner Stevens stated, which I want to repeat, we are still waiting after 10 years for reimbursement for FEMA, $8 million out of $100 million for a natural disaster. So when we talk about that we need to have reserves for that, that is for your benefit, because when a natural disaster happens, we need to immediately write checks that day to help get services, get roads repaired, get things out and moving in the county. And if we don't have that, trust me, other counties tell me their stories that it could be really catastrophic for our county and the functioning of our county. So I just want to say we're not trying to keep reserves for frivolous things. This is the safety, health, and welfare of our county. And I just want to state that very strongly as someone who lives and seen the 1976 flood firsthand as a child and living next to the Big Thompson and being one of those next evacuation zones for the Cameron Peak fire and been all over the burn area. I just want to state these are things that you may not see every day, but there's serious needs and things that we have to address as county commissioners. And so I just wanted to state that because I feel really strongly about that we need to be able to respond in times of need. So I really want to thank you all for being here today. We all hear you and understand these challenges. We all are feeling the increases in prices anywhere from eggs to gas to the things that we're seeing in our budget. And I do want to thank you for coming and all the emails. I may not get to all of them. We've received quite a few. We have, as Commissioner Stevens stated, we haven't made a decision. We have some new information and some things to talk about and look at for our budget. And we have our budget hearing on the Thursday, and I hope that you all will listen in. And so we will be continuing this conversation. I'm still reflecting and contemplating what's the best course of action. And so I do thank you all for coming today and sharing your stories and giving us some more information to think about. So with that, I just want to again thank my colleagues for their thoughtful comments in this time for public comment, and we appreciate the engagement. So let's move on because we have a lot on our agenda today, and we have that presentation about our budget. And I know we want to hear from staff because staff have been going. But first, we're going to do approval of the minutes. Colleagues, did you have any changes or additions or concerns about the minutes? All right, well, I'll ask Commissioner Kafalis to please make that motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. I move to approve the minutes for the week of December 4th, 2023.
Thank you, sir, for that motion. Any further deliberation? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay. So now we'll move on to our upcoming schedule review. Thank you, Sarah, for going through that with us.
This is the Commissioner's schedule for December 18th through the 22nd, 2023. On Monday, December 18th, the 10 a.m. work session with Mark Pfaffinger has been rescheduled with the day and time to be determined. From 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., the Commissioners may attend the Medical Center of the Rockies' new tower groundbreaking event at 2500 Rocky Mountain Avenue in Loveland. From 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m., there will be an elected officials lunch at the Stakeout Saloon at 152 West Mountain Avenue in Fort Collins. From 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., there will be a work session with Leslie Ellis, Director of Community Planning, Infrastructure, and Resources in the Commissioners' Conference Room on the second floor. From 3 p.m. to 5:30 p.m., the Commissioners may attend Caring for the Community Medical Center of the Rockies at 2500 Rocky Mountain Avenue in Loveland. From 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., there will be land use items with the Development Review Team. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it'll be in the hearing room on the first floor or virtually via Zoom. On Tuesday, December 19th, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., there will be an Administrative Matters meeting in the hearing room on the first floor. From 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., Commissioner Stevens may attend the Community Corrections Advisory Board Holiday Luncheon at the Penrose Tap House at 216 North College Avenue in Fort Collins. From 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m., there will be administrative direction to county management in the Sprague Lake Conference Room on the second floor. From 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., Commissioner Kafalis will attend the LaPorte Planning Advisory Committee meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it'll be in the hearing room on the first floor or virtually via Zoom. On Wednesday, December 20th, from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., there will be a work session for a discussion regarding the American Rescue Plan Act in the Commissioners' Conference Room on the second floor. From 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., Commissioner Kafalis will attend the Spirit Crossing Holiday Open House at the Spirit Crossing Clubhouse at 1148 East Elizabeth Street in Fort Collins. From 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., Commissioners may attend the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Board meeting at the Larimer County Loveland campus at 200 Peridot Avenue in Loveland. On Thursday, December 21st, from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., Commissioner Kafalis will attend the Housing Catalyst Board of Commissioners meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it'll be at the Housing Catalyst at 1715 West Mountain Avenue in Fort Collins or virtually via Zoom. From 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally will participate in the virtual National Association of Counties Rural Action Caucus meeting. From 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., Commissioner Kafalis will attend the Board of Health meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at 1525 Blue Spruce Drive in Fort Collins or virtually via Zoom. And on Friday, December 22nd, from 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., Commissioner Stevens will participate in the virtual Colorado Department of Human Services Trails Executive Steering Committee meeting.
Thank you, Sarah. Colleagues, do you have any changes or additions? Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, I have a couple additions. So I'm going to try to attend the Spirit Crossing Holiday Open House too on Wednesday, December 20th. And then I was asked by, and I think Commissioner Kafalis was too, by Seth to volunteer for the meal, serving the meal at the mission. So I'll be doing that, and I don't know I think the times for that are 5 to 7. And then I just wanted to say that on Thursday, December 21st, the North Front Range Metropolitan Planning Organization Finance Committee meeting has been canceled. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I'm also going to attend the Spirit Crossing. I haven't had a chance to respond to that. And then on Christmas Eve, I'm actually going to spend probably 4 or 5 hours traveling with the mayor of Loveland and the fire chief, going to all the fire stations and delivering goodies to all the fire stations. So, as I've done the last several years. So, it'll be a fun time. Okay. I think that's all I had changes. A lot of my meetings for that week got moved up to this week, and that's why my schedule's so crammed. So, okay. So with that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. But I wanted to just let everybody know I'm going to read this consent agenda at a high level. So if there's any details or things you'd like to learn about, you can go to our Board of County Commissioners website, and the agenda and the details are there attached to our meeting website, and also you can look at our schedules or emails, all kinds of important information. So I'm going to read through this at a high level, but the consent agenda consists of items of no perceived controversy and routine administrative actions such as abatements, agreements, deeds, final plats, liquor license, resolutions, and other matters previously reviewed by the Board of County Commissioners, and staff recommends approval of the consent agenda, and the commissioner may request that an item be pulled off the agenda considered separately. Items pulled from the agenda will be considered after the board takes action on the remainder of the consent agenda, and at this time, these are the items on our consent agenda today. Today, we have two items that are agreements, which are both of them are restated book record keeping service agreements with our TIAA brokerage account for government plans for our employees. And then we have three, a professional services agreement, P23-10, right-of-way and easement acquisition services with Western States. And this is between the board and Western States Land Services, LLC. We have a professional service agreement, P23-10, right-of-way and easement acquisition for Horrocks. And this is again with the county, and this is for right-of-way and easements for public improvement projects. We have we have all of the rest of these are all professional agreements, and so I won't read through all the details, but we have a professional services agreement, P23-11, on-call solid waste specific engineering, architectural, and construction remover. Professional services agreement, P23-11, on-call solid waste specific engineering and construction, HDR. And number 7 is professional agreement, P23-11, on-call solid waste specific engineering and architectural and construction, geosyntech. We have an 8, a professional services agreement, P23-11, on-call solid waste specific engineering, architectural and construction, Burns, with Burns McDonald Engineering. And we have 9 is construction service agreement for County Road 17 improvements between Willox Lane and US 287, number B23-04. And this is for the widening of County Road 17 as a project. We have number 10 is an intergovernmental agreement for hazard safety improvement program, also known as HSIP funds, for financial year 2024 on multiple county roads. You can read more about that. And this is between Larimer County Department of Transportation. And number 11, we have a emergency management performance grant jurisdictional form, which is through our Larimer County, the Colorado Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. We have 2 appointments. We have a recommended appointment to the Workforce Development Board of Ms. Hottenstein. We have a recommended appointment to the Pine Woods Springs General Improvement District. Congratulations, Mr. Andrews. We have a liquor license, a new liquor license for KOA, Colorado Beverage Company, LLC, which is in Fort Collins for Lakeside KOA. And we have a liquor license renewal for JJ's Liquors, LLC, which is in Fort Collins, I believe. And then we have a liquor license renewal of Brown's Trading Post Incorporated, which is the trading post in Bellevue. And we have our liquor license, Horseshoe Store and Gas, LLC, for Horseshoe Store and Gas for Fort Collins. We also have some miscellaneous items. There are several of them. I'm going to read through just a couple. The rest are very similar because they are, a couple of them are going to be similar. We have the Colorado Parks and Wildlife concurrence letter, and this is a letter of concurrence that relates to Colorado Parks and Wildlife efforts to renew the lease agreement between CPW and the Humility Before Honor LLC for access to water rights with the Hohenholz Lake States Wildlife Area in Larimer River Valley and Northwest Larimer County. So you can read more about that online. We have legal action requested for code compliance case number 23-CCC0076 in district court. And this is submitted by our code compliance supervisor. We have several 3 items at least. Stipulation 2 as tax year 2023 value. I won't read through all of those. We have a Pool 4 Finance LLC. That's also a tax stipulation. So all the rest, items 6 through 11, are all tax stipulations 2 as tax year 2023 value. We have resolutions, finding resolutions approving the Jacobson Administrative Special Review short-term rental. From September, we have a findings and resolutions approving the Western short-term rental administrative special review from That was also from our previous hearing. Then we have a findings and resolutions denying the Franklin short-term rental administrative special review, and a finding and resolutions denying the Franklin short-term rental special review on a different matter for a different item on that short-term rental. So we also have, this is a different rental, excuse me. Both are denials. And then we have the fifth item is a resolution, a 2024 resolution amending the compensation for Larimer County deputies and appointed officials. So, and that is submitted by our Human Resources Department. So with that, colleagues, is there any items you wish to have pulled from the consent agenda? Okay, thank you. I will ask Commissioner Stevens to please make that motion to approve the agenda.
Yes, Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda for December 12th, 2023.
Thank you, Commissioner. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. We had, I don't have a guest today. I'll be bringing a guest in January. Just let my colleagues know. I don't know if you had heard the news, but our Larimer County Rodeo, which celebrated its 75th anniversary this year, won the best rodeo in its medium class, and I'm going to invite the board to come and share that award when they get it in hand. So they'll be coming to a meeting mid-January because that's a big deal. They've never won that in their 75-year history. So I want to celebrate that and have them share about what it means. So with that, we'll move on to our discussion items, and I will invite Mr. Josh Fudge from our Performance Budget and Strategies Department, and I think he's bringing some of our small but mighty and very tremendous, great, hardworking budget team, Matthew Behunin, and I'll let them introduce themselves. But Josh, go ahead and take us through this presentation.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Again, my name is Josh Fudge. I'm the Director of Performance, Budget, and Strategy for Larimer County. Joining me is Matthew Behunin. He's our budget team lead, I believe is his more recent title. We'll be walking this morning through the changes thus far that we have received direction to make to the budget from what was proposed back in October. And so this is kind of the latest version. So with the next slide. So this table shows a broad outline of the changes to the budget. The top table shows really what the changes are that impact service levels, revenues, things of that nature. Below you see a smaller box that says technical changes. Those do have an impact on the total spending and revenues in the budget. However, they're really just moving money around between funds and so don't really have a significant impact. The top line there you see is the additional property tax, and that is $13.4 million. That is the result of Proposition HH failing. And so the proposed budget assumed that it would pass and that the county would be subject to the soft cap that was included in that law that limited property tax growth. With the failure of HH and then the subsequent passage of legislation in the special session, the property tax revenue would increase by about $13.4 million. As I mentioned, this is the result of the special session. The property tax is available to the county because, as has been discussed previously, the county has debruced from the Tabor, the revenue growth limits in Tabor and state statute. There was an election held in 1999 where the county asked the voters for permission to retain excess revenue above the cap and the Tabor cap and the statutory limits, and that ballot measure passed, and so the county is not legally subject to any limits in Tabor or state statute. The next item you see a change from the proposed budget is the loss of state backfill. One of I think the first member in public comment said he appreciated all the work that has gone into the budget, and I was gratified to hear that because this has been an extremely adventurous budget process. When the Senate Bill 22-238 was passed in 2022, it provided a reduction in assessment rates, and so it also included a backfill measure that provided local governments some amount of funding to make up for the lost property tax revenue. When Proposition HH failed and the legislature went into a special session, we heard several times that the backfill mechanism provided from 238 could be eliminated or reduced substantially. We continued to hear that. We looked for confirmation of that. We reviewed the statutes, and as you can imagine, the statutory language was not exactly clear. And so, out of an abundance of caution, we assumed that we would not be receiving that revenue from SB 238. However, in the last couple days, we have actually discovered that we are likely to receive that funding. The law basically said that the county will receive 65% of the lost revenue from that bill. And so that amount comes to about $6 million. Our budget analyst, Alex Jordan, is currently watching a presentation by the State Department of Property Taxation, where we hope to get as much final clarification as we can that $6 million will be available. But as of now, we believe that the county will receive that in 2024. So those are the additional resources that are available, about 7.4. Should that state backfill actually be provided, that would be actually $13.4 million. One other thing to note about the additional property tax, this does include the lower assessment rates from SB 238. On average, that bill reduced property taxes for the average home by about $125 per year. And then the special session reduced property taxes by another about $250 per year for an average home here in Larimer County. And so without the action by the state of those two bills, this additional property tax that could be available to the county would be substantially higher. So I'm sorry, can you go back one more? Thank you. So there are a couple of things that were added back on the expenditure side from the proposed budget. As you'll remember, there were some reductions in the proposed budget based on the property tax revenue cap. And so because of rising costs that have been discussed earlier, unfunded mandates and things of that nature, there were about $2.1 million of budget reductions that were in the proposed budget. Those items would be put back into the budget next year. That includes a position in our dispatch office, in the sheriff's office, post-release support and community justice alternatives, and workforce programming. And Matt can go into further detail on the following slides with these. Additionally, there are also some items that were requested by departments and offices in the proposed budget that were not in that version, but would be added back as a result of the special session. As has been mentioned previously, additional resources for the district attorney's office for domestic violence, eviction prevention services, a sergeant position in the civil unit in the sheriff's office, cybersecurity resources, and one-time funding of the transportation master plan. And as I mentioned, one-time expense, it's important to note that the state backfills $6 million. Should the county receive it, that's also a one-time source of funds, so that would go away in 2025. So the additional costs add up to about $4.7 million that would be added back to the budget. As I mentioned earlier, there are technical changes that you'll see on the following slides that impact the revenues and expenses sort of beyond these items. They add an additional level of complexity to the budget, so I won't go into a lot of detail unless there are further questions about that. With that, I'll take any questions. Otherwise, Matt will walk you through the remainder of the presentation.
Colleagues, do you have any questions at this time? Commissioner Kafalis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Josh. So could you, regarding what's the numbers on this slide, could you further explain when we say 13.4 million additional property tax? First of all, a question related to that: what is the percentage increase from the current budget in terms of additional property tax? And also, I'm a little bit confused because it says loss of state backfill, $6 million. You explained that was from a bill that the legislature passed in 2022, which brought the residential assessment rate to what it currently is, I believe, 6.765. And so that 6 million, now we're thinking we may get that, so that's a consideration. But you're saying additional resources are 7.4. So my two questions there are, what is the percentage increase in the additional property tax from this year? And also, could you explain, because I thought when we figured this out, we weren't considering the $6 million backfill. I mean, the additional resources are 13.4 million.
Correct.
But this seems to indicate that really we're only looking at 7.4. So could you explain that, please?
Sure, I apologize.
Thank
So
you, sir.
the 13.4 million represents additional property tax beyond what was in the proposed budget. The 2023 budget for property tax revenue is $150 million. There would be about a $17 million increase that was in the proposed budget based on our cap that was in Proposition HH. And this is an additional 13.4 million for a total of about $30 million of additional property tax revenue, or a 20% increase over the current budget. The $6 million, so the $6 million was in the proposed budget as a revenue source based on what we knew at the time. As we put this presentation together and have been talking about the budget in light of the special session, we proposed, based on what we were hearing, removing that revenue source because we weren't certain that we would be receiving it. There was a lot of question. In the last couple of days, it has become clear that that $6 million, we are now fairly confident that we will be receiving that. And so the actual additional resources that would be available basically are the 13.4 million in additional property tax revenue.
And we do expect to have that confirmed today. So one of the budget staff is listening to the state as they describe what will happen to this backfill fund. But we always budget very conservatively. We don't assume we're going to have revenue that we aren't certain we're going to have. This could be really good news for the commissioners and for the county and for the community. So we hope to get the good news today, and we expect to, but until we know for certain, we're still showing it as a deficit until we have the answer.
Go ahead.
So the 2024 proposed budget that we submitted back in October was with the assumption that Prop HH failed.
It was with the assumption that it would pass.
Oh, that it would pass. That's right. Forgive me.
Yep.
That it would pass, and that is why we did the various budget reductions, and we rejected a number of what we call service proposals, which is meeting the service demand category. That's right. We assumed that it would pass, even though that was a more fiscally conservative way to go.
Correct.
And so Prop H8, we've heard a number of folks talk today, and through the 25 or so emails that we've received, that Prop HH lost resoundingly. 2 days later, after the election, the governor decides to call a special session. That went on for 4 days. 7 bills were passed. One of them was Senate Bill 1, which is the effort to do a property tax relief. And that, could you talk a little bit about that, and what kind of, you alluded to that earlier, but maybe it would be good to be reminded of how does that matter to regular folks who are struggling to make ends meet?
Sure. So the special session, Senate Bill 1, did further reduce assessment rates, especially for residential properties, from what had already been reduced by the bill passed in 2022. So 2 bills reduced assessment rates, therefore reducing the amount of property tax that property owners would have to pay. In general, for about a $500,000 to $600,000 value home, the first bill reduced property taxes by about $125 per year. The special session bill, in general, reduced them by about $250 per year. Does that answer your?
Yes, and just further, if I may, so the Senate Bill 1, which was one of the bills in the special session, reduced the residential assessment rate. It doesn't do anything about commercial assessment rates, but it went from 6.765 to 6.7. And then there was another aspect of that which is important, and that is that it increases the exemption for the taxable value, which the Coloradoan, I believe, reported it as $50,000. So if you have a $500,000 home, then you're looking at applying the assessment rate of 6.7% to actually not 450. I believe it's 445. I think the taxable value was decreased by that much. So that also is that also factored into what you said a moment ago, Josh, about like on a $600,000 home, which is close to the median value of a single family home in Fort Collins, that the savings would be perhaps around $250 on top of the previous one, right?
Correct. Yep. And so had the special session not happened, had no legislation passed, the additional available property tax would have been substantially higher. Instead of about a 20% increase, the amount available would have been about 30%.
Well, I said I would have questions. Madam Chair, I don't know if you want me to pause and wait until the end, but I'd like to continue the conversation, but I can wait.
I think it might be, I don't know how my colleague Commissioner Stevens, but I feel like it might be great to go ahead and get through the whole presentation and then have these questions just for the folks that are listening in, so they can get all the information. And then maybe our questions will also be more clear why we're asking some of these questions. So if you wouldn't mind, colleague, for just maybe keeping your questions noted, and let's let staff kind of finish the presentation, and then we can go forward with the rest of our questions at that time.
So I'll walk you through the numbers that we're going to see. This is the changes from the 2024 proposed budget that you all saw on October 15th to the 2024 adopted budget, which will be voted on by the board on Thursday. And so you'll see both technical changes and some of the changes that are related to the property tax revenues here. So the total revenue change is about 15.7 million, and here's the breakdown. There's 13.4 in additional property taxes. The state backfill, as Budget Director Fudge mentioned, is removed from the budget, although we're thinking and trying to confirm with the state that will be put back in, and that would be a budget amendment in 2024. Then the transfer to the disaster contingency fund would be 8 million. And then these two final lines, changes for reductions capacity, these would be related to changes in expenses. Because we do fund-based accounting, an expense is sometimes double counted if it's paid for out of a non-general fund account. So there's a transfer expense and then there's the actual expense. So that's why the revenues are changed there for the 757,000. And then also there are adjustments to improvement districts. So the county manages many, I think 300 or so improvement districts and special districts. So it would include the pest control district. And because property tax rates or valuations are changing for those districts as well, the budget for those districts are changing. So those are the revenues. And then on the expense side, go to the next slide. We're going to change almost $9 million from the proposed to adopted budget. There's the transfer to the disaster contingency fund. And then the next two lines have been discussed, the eliminating the reductions in the proposed budget and then increasing service capacity. Between the proposed and adopted phase, in November, we heard from the Solid Waste Department that the timeline in the construction of the North Landfill
has been updated. They had $8 million in 2025 that they're going to move up to 2024. And so that's that $8 million
So this is
change.
not additional money, correct? The 8 million?
Correct.
Could you explain that again,
Yeah.
slowly and surely?
So we have a 5-year capital program, right? Because some of these projects are tens of $millions in expenses over multiple years, and we want to program that all out. And so what the capital plan shows is spending in each year over the next 5 years. So you have spending in 24, 25, and the North Landfill is set to be constructed along with the transfer station. And the timing on when the current landfill is going to close has been less certain as the usage of the airspace remaining is nearing the end. And so and as the permitting and all that has been worked out, the solid waste fund has been building up a fund balance, and then that fund balance will be used to cash finance the project over the next following years. And so the $8 million would have been pulled from fund balance in 2024, or left in fund balance in 2024 to be used in 2025. And so that expense is going to be moved up 1 year, and then so the fund balance won't be carried forward. It'll just be used up a year earlier.
So
I
let
hope
me
I didn't explain
make the
that too.
distinction here, that is not property tax fund. That is solid waste fund. Those are fees and expenses from the landfill. It is a separate fund. So you all will adopt a budget that includes all of the county's funds, including sales tax and the solid waste fund, which are not based on property tax, just to provide some clarity around the total budget.
Commissioner Kofalis, do you have some further on that?
Yeah, just a quick comment. Thank you, Matthew. And I think what you said in, quote, plain language is that we had this money set aside last year to start construction on the new landfill north of Wellington. Because the construction timelines have changed, now we're going to spend the money this year to start construction on the new north landfill, the one that's north of Wellington. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you for that translation. My budget speak.
Thank you, Matthew. So please proceed.
So the county tax district adjustments, this is related to the improvement districts again, the pest district. We learned that emergency management will be able to spend $100,000 from a grant that they received after the proposed budget was released. So that's been added. And then also there was just a correction. The Fleet Campus project transfer was over budgeted for the amount that was needed. And so the revenue, the transfer in, now matches the transfer out. And that's just a technical change. And so that's all the changes in expenses. And the only other information we have to share is that because of the special session and the changes in property tax valuations, we do not have the final valuation from the assessor's office. We have an estimate. We've been using that estimate to calculate all these numbers. But for the first time since I've been at Larimer County, the mill levy certification is not happening on the same day as the budget adoption. We're not going to receive the deadline for the final certification to us from the assessor's office is January 5th. And so the hearing for mill levy certification is January 10th. So that's when you'll vote to certify the county mill levies. On Thursday at 2 p.m., we will have the budget adoption appropriation resolutions for you to vote on. That'll include public comment and then all the resolutions to amend the 2023 budget, adopt the 24 budget, appropriate 2024 expenses for each department and elected office, and then designate 2024 ending fund balances, which are the reserves for future years. And then also a technical delegation of certification and submission of 2024 mill levies for all the other tax authorities in the county. And so all those resolutions will be voted on this Thursday, and we would welcome anyone who would want to come to public comment for that. But those are the two final dates of the 2024 budget adoption. and happy to continue the conversation and answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you, Matthew. So I just want to kind of reiterate, all along we were considering doing a mill levy tax credit, but then, and we were also playing the budget with HH and with HH passing. So it didn't pass, and then you guys kind of adjusted, and we were getting ready to look at what we might do. But then the governor called a special session, which they kind of did a reduction for us, though they really don't collect property taxes themselves. So we had to kind of adjust and change again. Now we have some more clarity on something that we assumed we wouldn't be having, which you're going to get clarity hopefully today. And now we'll have to look at this budget, do what we mostly do, but we have to wait on this mill levy certification because of all these changes, which is causing the assessor's office and everyone across the state in budget offices having to readjust and do things they've never had to do. Just wanted to kind of state that for the public, that I appreciate our budget office and all the folks who work in the assessors, all these millage credits, all the things you guys have done, including, watching minute by minute the special session, trying to understand what was happening so you could help us kind of follow along as well as we were watching, and to understand that all of this has been throwing some extra curveballs, to say as an understatement, as we go forward. And I want to just thank you, you and I think he was here, Alex and Josh and you, just for your tremendous work and helping us kind of navigate this uncharted territory that we're kind of navigating through. And I know this is very complex and maybe complicated, and I know a lot of folks are trying to understand that we're even debruced. I think 51 out of 64 counties in Colorado are debruced, but not all counties are. And I just wanted to thank you, because I know you've been trying to help us make sense of this new pathway, and just it's been tremendous work. Just want to thank you all, because I know we feel it, we understand, we're hearing from the public, and I know you are also getting calls. And I just want to thank you both for your professionalism and expertise here. It's been very helpful and well noted. So, Commissioner Stevens, before I go back to Commissioner Gonzalez, do you have any questions?
Well, I think it all comes down to, for the people that were here this morning, kind of what their increase is going to be, right? And so just because their valuation is increasing 30 or 40% does not mean their taxes are increasing 30 or 40%. So,
correct.
So I think that that's important for people to understand. And because people haven't received the tax bill part yet, I think that there's, and that there are increases, but I don't know that they will be as drastic for many folks as I think people think they might be.
And if someone, the public wants to walk through their property and the different scenarios and the county's portion of the tax bill, we're happy to sit down or get on a call and walk through those numbers.
I appreciate that. And I have some talking points that I think that came to me. And is this true that the monthly payment for the average homeowner of a single family home will increase about $60 per month? Is that what we're figuring out?
For the total?
Oh, is increasing from $60 per month to $75 per month?
That would be the county's portion of the tax, yeah, for a typical single family homeowner. If you have a mobile home that's only worth $100,000, or if you have a larger home, the increase will be different. But yeah, that's about right for a typical
home. So the county's portion of the tax would only be a $15 increase. So obviously we can't affect there again the other taxing entities, but
right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. I hope you can kind of bear with me just a little bit.
Yeah, can you speak up just a tiny bit or get closer to your mic? Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner, we can't hear you very well today.
Do you really want to hear me?
I do.
Yeah, I'll continue to work on that. I appreciate you pointing that out. Well, first of all, an easy question would be the budget hearing. The adoption of the budget is on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Where and how can folks listen in if if they can't be there in person. And also, you made reference to your willingness to meet with folks, and very grateful for that. But if you could make a reference to one of our tools that we have, the Budget Explorer, which I think explains a lot of things. So, a couple of questions in there.
Yeah, so the budget hearing will be here in this room at 2 p.m. on Thursday. And the details for calling in and submitting comments on the budget, those are all on the county website, larimer.gov/budget. And then we also have resources. If you really love budgets and you want to know how much is being allocated to certain departments or elected offices, there's a tool on there, the Budget Explorer, which has all those breakdowns, down to the individual programs within departments.
And where is that?
And that's also at larimer.gov/budget. It'll be right there on the homepage.
And the meeting, the hearing on Thursday, will that be broadcast or will that just be audio?
Yeah, I believe it'll be broadcast.
It will be broadcast. It's actually up in the Commissioner's conference room on the second floor in the Commissioner's suite. It will not be in the hearing room. I looked at what it was advertised to be, and it is in the conference room.
Second floor, Commissioner's conference room. And I think if you want to watch it, it's larimer.org/broadcast.
Yes.
And if anyone wants to contact us, our contact information is also on the website. Or just come find us upstairs.
Maybe one or two more questions. One of the themes that we heard today and through the emails was a reference to property tax revenue windfall. And I think what I'm remembering and understanding is that if nothing had changed, Prop HH lost. If there wasn't a special session with Senate Bill 1, then what would that revenue, in other words, if we were in the status quo, what would that revenue increase be? Is that the 22% that we've referenced?
If the special session had not happened.
Right, if we weren't seeing a reduction, somewhat of a reduction in property taxes as a result of the special session, and knowing that Proposition HH was not successful, and taking into consideration the lower assessment rate, that we already were aware of.
Right. So this is how these are rough percentages, but for about an average of 40% valuation increase.
Right.
After SB 238, which was a bill passed last year, 2022 session, that would have already been before any votes, about a 30% increase. And then again, the special session brought those values down to about a 20% increase.
And so, in terms of revenue, actual dollars, I mean, without anything, the quote windfall would have been about $25 million. Is that correct?
The windfall being the revenue above the expenses that were in the proposed budget. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's about 28 million.
Okay. And with the passage of Senate Bill 1 in the special session, and with the reference to the previous bill passed last year, the additional revenue to the county, and a reminder, and I think folks know this by now, we represent about 25% of the property tax revenue. So how much additional money? Is that the 15 or the 13 million?
The 13 and a half, almost 14 million that we saw in the presentation today.
Some of the emails that we got, a number of them, another theme was, and it came up today, and that is we should only we talked about debrucing and all of that, and the voters approved that in 1999. But one of the themes that I saw in the emails was that we should keep the revenue from property taxes below 165 million, and people kept referring to property tax increases. So I'm trying to understand where that 165 million is coming from, other than in looking through the budget documents that we received, I think in 2023, this year, the amount of money from property taxes is 159 million, and so people were suggesting we shouldn't go above 165 because maybe that keeps us in that quote 5% or 7% range. See if you can figure out what I just said.
So the email I believe you're referencing with the 165 million, I believe the intent of that was to say that would be about a 5% increase over this year's budget. The issue was that was based off of about 156 million, which is the total amount of property tax the county collects. However, about 6.5 million of the tax that we collect is for Foothills Gateway. That's the largest component, about 5.5 million, I think. That's for a voter approved property tax revenue that goes to that organization that serves individuals with disabilities. And then there's about another 1 to 2 million that is for the improvement districts that Matt mentioned. Those are voter approved in their specific geographic areas to do road maintenance and things of that nature. The actual operating property tax revenue of the county is about $150.1 million. So a 5% increase on that would have been lower. The issue with that, of course, is that the county has had some pretty substantial cost increases. There's $2 or $3 million in next year's budget just to maintain our medical contract and food service at the jail due to cost increases that are funded through property tax. There's no other way to fund those, basically. So I believe that was the basis of the email that you referenced.
Thank you. I'm almost done. If you'll just allow me a little more. Thank you. So, could you explain in plain language the rationale, some of the rationale behind us kind of shifting from the idea of a mill levy, temporary mill levy credit, and how that would impact one's property tax bill in 2024, side by side with the rationale of trying to put as much money in the rainy day fund or the emergency fund to be prepared. But ultimately, if we were to do a certain temporary mill levy credit, depending on the dollar amount, how that would affect the property tax liability of folks.
So the county does have the ability through state statute to implement a temporary mill levy credit. It can do that annually. It can renew that credit. It can let the credit expire. That reduces the property tax rate, which would then obviously reduce individuals or property owners' property tax bill. The impact of a mill levy credit on a home, because of the county's relatively small portion of the tax bill, is fairly small for a property owner. If the county wanted to reduce its property tax revenues by, let's say, $4 million, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the impact on an average $500,000 to $600,000 home would be roughly $30, maybe $40 per year. And so the impact on the county budget of $4 million is arguably substantial, but it would go towards providing property tax relief. On the other hand, putting those excess property tax revenues into the fund for contingency for disasters, as was discussed earlier, the county almost certainly will again face floods or fires and needs to have resources available to respond to those disasters quickly. A good example is that fund currently has about $11 million in it. In 2020, at the height of when the Cameron Peak fire had just ended, the county transferred $16 million to our disaster fund that actually pays for disasters to recover from that fire. So we already have an example in recent memory of a much costlier disaster than we currently have funds set aside. As has been mentioned, the costs for disaster relief are only increasing, and so there's a argument to be made that it's prudent to continue to set funds aside, and that's what the decision comes down to.
Thank you. Related to this topic, one of the, at least one of the folks who was offering public testimony this morning and through the emails, there was a reference to, I think, somewhat quote or paraphrasing, using our influence to get the school district to lower their mill levy rate. I think it was correctly stated that I think it's about 53% of our property tax bill if you live in Fort Collins goes to the schools, and then again about 25% goes to the county. Could either of you speak to whether or not statutorily by state law the school district can do that? And we did make an effort. I asked the question, what are the other taxing authorities thinking, like the library district, the health district, the city of Fort Collins, and the municipalities, most of their money comes from sales tax, but they do get property tax. So could you speak to what has been suggested, that if we could perhaps lean on the school district and other taxing authorities, then any mill levy credit would have a perhaps more meaningful impact?
I can take that one, actually. So while you all were talking and while I heard that comment, I looked up the governor's letter to schools and to the school boards. And what I found was, specifically, he's referencing dollars they have discretion over, which are non-instructional bond and override levies, such as those affecting capital projects, technology, or transportation. They cannot affect the instructional funds. Those are the ones that the state has to backfill above. But these are maybe special construction bonds or other kinds of mill levies that they've had approved in their district to do specific things not related to that core instructional work. I hope that helps.
And if I can add to that, Poudre School District, for example, their mill levy override is actually set to generate a certain amount of money. And so as I understand it, their override mill levy rate may go down next year because with the higher values, the tax rate can go down to generate the same amount of funding. So at least as far as I understand, Poudre School District may have a lower mill levy next year for that reason. And I don't know about the other school districts.
Then perhaps my last question, hooray. Thank you. A lot of the folks here this morning, and certainly through the emails, I self-identified as retired folks, people on limited or fixed income Social Security, and I wonder if you could speak to the homestead property tax exemption, and that can make I believe that can make a pretty big difference for people's property tax liability. And there's the senior one, and if you can't answer that, I probably can. But there's the senior one, then there's the 100% veterans, with military-related disability, and I believe there's also one related to Gold Star spouses. Could you speak to that? How that might be a resource?
I'll try and correct me if I get any of the details wrong, but this was on the ballot with Prop HH. So let's back up. Current law allows senior exemptions of up to $50,000. Is that correct? $100,000.
Could I? So current law, it's in the Constitution. The voters passed it regarding the senior homestead exemption. It's 50% of the first $200,000 of value. So when we talked about the taxable value being reduced by $55,000 on a home, that brings a $500,000 home to $455,000, and then the homestead exemption, if you're 65 and older, would bring that down by another $100,000. So the assessment rate would be applied to $355,000 rather than $500,000. I just want folks to understand that, because that can be very helpful, I think.
And you have to apply for that through the assessor's office. There's a form to go and verify your status of being eligible for that, correct?
Yes, by July 15th, I believe.
Right.
Well, I guess the takeaway is that for what it's worth, there are resources out there if you're 65 and older, or one of these other categories of veterans and whatnot. I think you all have been very gracious. I guess I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner. Unless Commissioner Stevens has a question, I just had a couple things I wanted to add. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I actually don't have any questions, further questions. I've asked the questions I have, but I appreciate the work that you've all done. And, as folks can see, there's still a lot of uncertainty. I mean, we're still on webinars this morning trying to figure out what's happening. So, it hasn't been an easy year to produce a budget and make the kind of corrections we've had to make all along. So, just thank you to our budgeting staff. You guys have worked, overtime and kept an eye on the special session, and so none of this has been easy. So just appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think that is the word for 2023, uncertainty. We've had a lot of uncertainty in our budgeting and looking at, and a lot of this has been out of our control with the uncertainty. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that. Well, first I want to also, we did have some folks that are retired who emailed us and really kind of emailed us after the governor's letters went out in the press release and pretty much had stated kind of, it's not as many as the 25, but there's some people that said, hey, we want you to use these funds. We understand about the natural disasters. We understand about your increasing costs, and we want you to not cut services and maintain the service level. So I want to say it sounds like we've only heard in one way, but we have heard in conversations and a couple of emails and calls that, at least for me, I know we all received one email for sure, is also we've heard from folks to say, you guys have done a really thorough process. We trust that you're doing what's best for the county. So I wanted to share that. So Matthew, there's one concern I have, and I know we've talked about this, but I also want this to kind of be on folks' radar. We have potentially in 2024 some ballot initiatives that really could devastate our revenues and change how county government looks at. We'll be really looking at some pretty substantial and significant cuts that will be felt significantly by the public, in my opinion. So one of the things that I don't think has been clear, and I've asked this question at our county commissioners conference and from other counties and commissioners, I'm not sure if we know this, but I know we have a concern here in our county that if we do lower, and I'm saying we're still just looking at all of these things. We haven't voted on this. Today is just a discussion to let the public have this presentation, hear us talk about it. But there are some maybe unintended consequences that if we do look at and lowers this assessment rate and this ballot initiative passes, which I'm hoping folks are paying attention because this is to be very impactful, that potentially could even be a double negative for us, because if we lower that for this year, and I'm not saying that I'm thinking one way or the other, this is just something that we have to look at all scenarios and consequences as we're making these decisions. And this has not been brought up today. If we lower that and this initiative passes, and that's a big if, but I'm hoping folks are thinking about how they like to have their kind of government work and look like, that would kind of put us at a new low baseline for what we're at now. That if we did give us some kind of credit and that passes, that sticks us at a new lower level. So it actually would probably be even more detrimental than just it passing in general. Is that something, am I making sense?
Yeah,
Because I'm thinking.
So we're monitoring all kinds of legislation. I think you're referring to Initiative 50, but there are other ballot initiatives that have been filed to be put on the ballot for 2024. So Initiative 50 would be similar to, if folks are familiar with Prop 13 in California, it would be a constitutional limit on property tax growth from year to year. And so that, whatever our revenue is this year, that would be the new ceiling for that type of formula. And there are other initiatives that are similar.
But if we lower, would that change our new floor too? If we lower it, that kind of would not let us go back up to our regular floor, would make us a new floor, which actually would even be lower than if we hadn't adjusted. Is that correct?
Whatever the revenue is after the a temporary credit or not, that revenue would be the base for the calculation of a percentage increase or limit going forward.
Okay, so something to consider. with our just was as we're reflecting and thinking about this. So, okay. Um, we have, just for the public's knowledge, we have had budget retreats. We've had conversations. We've had several sessions, work sessions, presentations on this budget since October. But we have these conversations year round, and so today is just, it seems pretty concise, but this is days, months, weeks, hours, thousands of hours of work combined. I know you can only work so many hours a day, but this is combined. Lots of work has gone into this budget, and there's conversations, and we've had to really pivot and adapt and adjust because of the special session and other things that really we have to react to because we don't have control over. So I want to just again, talk about my gratitude and to all of you and to the public too, because we've had a lot of public engagement, and we appreciate that engagement. We appreciate them asking the questions and learning more. And we do have a wonderful website, Matthew, that you helped create, Larimer Budget Explorer on Larimer, on our budget, larimer.org website. And you can look up your property taxes, you can look at your sales taxes, you can compare property taxes in metro districts versus not, or different school districts. And it's a useful tool that I use a lot to help folks as we talk about their property taxes. And I appreciate your offer for folks to call in and you could walk them through kind of what their property taxes would look like. And you guys are really very gracious and do that a lot. And I just want to thank you for your service in that way. So with that, Commissioner Kofalis.
Yep. I have two relevant closing comments that I would like to share. One, of course, is to extend the appreciation and gratitude to you all, Matthew and Josh and Alex and other folks involved in the budget process. I think it's important to note that appreciation and gratitude is extended throughout the entire county organization, because leadership, department heads, they really had to kind of navigate all of this uncertainty, and the folks that work here that attempt to provide services to people or fix potholes or things like that, they were also dealing with a level of anxiety because we weren't really sure how this would impact personnel costs and now and moving forward. So I wanted to mention that, and I also wanted to make the point that what we've been discussing today is not intended and will not, in my opinion, grow government. We are not looking at adding a whole bunch of employees, full-time equivalents, part-time, etc. So I think that's an important point. And then finally, what was it? Matthew, help me. No. There were a number of references to, the voters speaking their will on Prop HH, and they did, and it went down pretty darn resoundingly. It lost, and that the legislative session was kind of a way to achieve Proposition HH light, and that was kind of going around the will of the voters. I wanted to point out two things related to that. One is that the proposed changes that came out of the special session, well, Senate Bill 1 in particular, which lowers the assessment rate further, et cetera, is for 1 year. So it's Proposition HH light for 1 year. And the other thing, one of the other 7 bills that was passed was to create a 19-member bipartisan property tax task force, and hopefully that group will absorb the collective wisdom and the goodwill of everyone down there in Denver. And their charge is to come up with more meaningful, sustainable, long-term solutions to the property tax. As one person put it, I don't know if it was Charlie or somebody else, debacle, conundrum, quandary, whatever word you want to use. So I wanted to point that out, that there will be monitoring that. That has potential to come up with something that's meaningful. The voters did repeal Gallagher in 2020, and that was kind of the backstop for why residential assessment rates didn't grow dramatically. But in the end, it hammered businesses because theirs had to stay at 29% until we repealed Gallagher. So That's all I got to say. Thank you, folks, for your hard work. We'll be discussing more, and then ultimately try to make we'll make a decision on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, Lorenda, do you want to add anything? And I just want to also just kind of let my colleagues know, I know we've had some folks who have been waiting for 2 hours for their presentation, and I know we're going to continue these conversations and have time on Thursday. So did you want to add anything, Lorenda?
I think I will, just for the listening public. At no time did the commissioners consider growing government. You all were very thoughtful about balancing some form of relief for the taxpayers and some sort of savings for natural disasters. There were a lot of monkey wrenches thrown in throughout the process this year, and you have been highly engaged. You have asked great questions. You have talked with the budget team. You've talked with departments and offices. I can't thank you enough for your engagement as well as staff's engagement. You've ridden along with us. We've ridden along with you together to try to do the best for the community. And as rough as this year has been, I feel like we'll end up with a good budget. We will adopt something on the 14th that will serve the public. And I know you all are listening to what folks say that they need. So I appreciate you, your engagement with the community, the people who came out to talk. We rarely have this kind of budget engagement. So it really is what democracy is all about, coming to speak on behalf of you and your neighbors. Budget office, the departments, the offices across the county have also been highly engaged. Thank you very much for your work and helping us navigate this roller coaster ride, which I hope will wrap itself up on the 14th. So thank you.
Thank you, Lorenda. And thank you again to everyone. Appreciate the conversation and this presentation. So we're going to move on because we have one more item, well, actually two more items on our agenda, but they're one of them is really important that we're very excited about. And so I will thank you, Josh and Matt, for being here today. It is a resolution of the Larimer County Board of County Commissioners expressing intent to provide funding to assist with the construction of supportive housing for individuals with intellectual disabilities. And so I'm going to have Laura Walker come and present about this and share what this means.
Wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner. I am Laura Walker. I'm the Human and Economic Health Director for the county, and I have also been helping to coordinate the allocation of American Rescue Plan Act dollars that the county received from the federal government. And so with those dollars, it was very important for the commissioners to have a good variety of investments into our community, including geographic representation across our very large landmass of a county that we have, also serving various purposes and populations, particularly the most vulnerable populations that have really been negatively impacted from the pandemic and really have not seen a full recovery and won't for some time because they were disadvantaged before the pandemic. So in light of that, we're bringing you another resolution, and we've done this a couple of different ways as far as allocating these dollars and actually getting them out the door. For some of the transformational project ideas that have been brought to you, we've just asked for an immediate granting of dollars because a project was either fully funded by the contribution that the commissioners made. A great example of that is the health clinic that is being built out at the Murphy Center to provide primary physical care to folks experiencing homelessness who come through that center. But then there are other projects that need a combination of funding, a braiding of funding in order to get to the full cost of doing the work. So for those types of projects, which is the one I'm bringing today, we've been doing resolutions that the board puts through and approves, and then that gives documented public proof to the entity that's making the request for the funds that the commitment is there from the commissioners that if they are able to get full project funding, then we would be releasing our contribution to the project. So the resolution we brought today was for L'Arche, Northern Colorado, and this is an organization, it's a worldwide organization as a matter of fact, that provides stable and supportive housing for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to be able to live in the community in more of a I guess it is a congregate setting because there is staffing that goes along with these homes to make sure that the folks that are living there have proper care and are also taking advantage of the opportunities of living in more of a community setting rather than some sort of institutional type of a setting that you might imagine have been some of the options in the past for people who have significant barriers to living on their own. So we have Dustin Barrington with us. And Dustin, if you'd like to come up, the commissioners may have some specific questions for you around what L'Arche is doing in this community. But this grant is going towards helping to fund 2 homes that'll be on the Hartside Hill campus that the commissioners are already familiar with. So not only contributing towards affordable housing, but also helping a very specific population with the struggles that they have to be in the community. So Dustin, I'll have you come up and see if the commissioners would like a little more detail from you. I think they would, and then they may have some questions for you as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you, Laura. Welcome, Dustin. We appreciate you being here today, along with the folks you brought with you.
Of course. Well, I've prepared a few statements just quickly, but as you know, my name is Dustin Barrington, and I'm joined here today by our vice president of our board, who is Romy Tobin, and our former president of our board, Jen Feaster. An illness prevented our current board president from joining us today, but yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you on behalf of L'Arche for making this not just a good morning, but a great morning for us. We appreciate your investment in these L'Arche homes, and I'd like to take a moment just to clarify generally and specifically why this is so important. In living memory, life has significantly improved for Americans with intellectual disabilities. Institutionalization has been greatly reduced. Civil rights have been secured. Education and supportive services have improved, and life expectancy has increased. Most people with IDD are now living into their 60s. So why do we need these large homes? Well, here in Colorado, 73% of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities live with family. For some, this is a matter of choice. However, this percentage is also artificially high because IDD service and support reimbursement rates are artificially low. The economies of scale associated with large institutions were the original set point for service and support reimbursement rates. And over the last 30 years, rates have only increased to accompany cost of living, meaning that the entire sector is chronically underfunded. The 2 primary symptoms of underfunding are, number 1, a statistically consistent shortage of direct service providers, and number 2, high percentages of family caregivers who effectively subsidize support for their loved ones with food, shelter, healthcare, transportation, financial support, emotional support, social connection, service coordination, benefits administration, and many other things. While much better than institutionalization, this approach inevitably results in an urgent need. 10 to 15% of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Colorado live with family caregivers who are over the age of 60, and most of them will outlive them. So let's bring this home to Larimer County. Of the 127,000 Coloradans with IDD, about 8,000 of them live here in Larimer County. This means that about 1,000 residents of Larimer County with IDD live with aging caregivers. The natural mortality rate of the 60-plus demographic is over 2% per year, and this means that about 20 residents of Larimer County with IDD will lose an aging caregiver every single year. For those with only one caregiver, they instantly go from being stably housed to being one of the most vulnerable people in our community. There is no system to identify this risk, let alone address the issue. The 2 large homes that you have funded will provide safe, stable, affordable housing with all the comprehensive benefits of family caregiving and integration into our local community. Through these homes, L'Arche will provide a solution of welcome, connection, and belonging. We welcome by seeing value in every person and celebrating their gifts. We connect each person to relationships and resources that meet their real, tangible needs. And we belong together by cultivating meaningful mutual relationships across our differences. Your commitment to fund these homes is making it possible for L'Arche to help address an urgent need for adults with intellectual disabilities and their aging caregivers. In light of the need, we could do twice this much every year for decades. But even so, we want to reiterate our gratitude for your commitment to these two homes, and we hope that this is only the beginning of a public-private partnership that will meet the needs of Larimer County residents with IDD for many years to come. We thank you sincerely for all of your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those are some great numbers. I didn't know if we could get a copy of that or something sent to us. I would love to have some of those numbers.
Yes, ma'am. I'd be
that would
happy
be
to
great.
provide that.
So with that, colleagues, I'm not sure with light of the time. I know we might have some questions or comments from Dustin and for Laura, because we would just need to. Do you want us to read the full resolution and then have questions?
You don't need to read. I don't think you need to read the
just-
resolution. It is
okay.
part of the packet if anyone in the public wants to see that level of detail.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So, so then we'll just go ahead and ask some questions and see if there's any comments or questions. Commissioner Stevens has them. We'll go to Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Thank you, Dustin, for the presentation, and thanks for, letting us know about the kind of numbers and some of the challenges that people face in our community. So that makes this, makes me even more resolute about passing this resolution, because I think, it's very needed. Just one question. So it's 2 homes, and how many people can live in each home?
So we are a PASA with a PCA designation, which means that we can serve up to 3 people in an individual home. So with 2 homes, we would be serving 6 individuals.
Okay, so not nearly addressing the need, but certainly, hopefully, putting a little dent in it. So, thank you for again for explaining some of the challenges that people face in our community. Certainly, happy to support this using the American Rescue Plan dollars that we have, and please be in touch, and we'll look forward to ribbon cuttings and ground. I think we've already broke ground in a way in that space, but. Certainly want to celebrate with you as you bring these to fruition. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. Thanks, Dustin. I don't have any questions. Just I appreciate L'Arche, Northern Colorado, and the international movement. There was a reference to Hartside Hill, and I think this is a really unique, more than unique, housing development that includes rental housing, that includes the 2 L'Arche homes, that includes home ownership with Fort Collins Habitat for Humanity, and then another investment that we've made in this project. I don't know if it's called a early childhood or community life center, but there will be a sort of a community gathering place, and I think the intent is still to provide some on-site child care. So it's very unique, and I'm really glad that the residents of the L'Arche homes can be part of that and learn from each other and learn from all the other folks that live on the Hartside Hill location. The matter of a lot of folks living with their parents or their caretakers who are aging, I can sort of relate to that in that one of the things I did back in the 80s before you were born, there used to be a program called Citizen Advocate, and the idea was that it was like the partners. You would be partnered with someone with intellectual and or developmental disability, and so I was partnered with an individual with Down syndrome, and his folks actually were aging very on the older side, and they actually lived in. He lived here, and the parents lived in Nassau in the Bahamas. So I can relate to that, and I know one of the blessings I had is that one day they called me and said, "We'd like Peter to come home for Christmas. Would you go with him?" And I said, "The Bahamas? No. Oh yes." So that was a real opportunity for me to meet his folks and to be with Peter on the airplane and to go to see the Bahamas. But it's a real issue, and as you mentioned, Dustin. Some of it is by choice, but ultimately, folks are living longer, and their parents may be passing on. So we need to come up with options for folks, how they can live with dignity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dustin, for being here, and thanks to your former board members, and for tireless volunteers and advocates. It's just really glad to have you all here today, and I'm really excited to be in support of this resolution and have it brought forward and have us explain what this means and what we're doing. And as Commissioner Kafal said, it is a very unique housing project and endeavor that's happening with that faith community, and it's just really exciting to be a part of that. I really, before this all started, over a year with American Rescue Plans, I started to learn more and more about the large community and this endeavor and what you're doing, and I learned more about it. And I love the motto is create a kinder world. And I think that's really important. That's what we're trying to do here is have a county that is more inclusive and people feel welcomed here and that they belong. This is something that touches my heart. I have they unfortunately don't live in Larimer County, but we have family members that we will now in the future be responsible for that would benefit from this home because they live with IDD and they're with their caregivers, and we all are recognizing that we have to support and plan for that. And I have two of them, one on the western slope that's living with a community caregiver who's aging, and then one that's out of state that's that we, they fortunately were able to build an accessory dwelling unit to have them just be there but not there. So it's interesting, and she certainly likes to write me long letters that I try to read with her pencil. So they're really heartfelt, and she tells me she's proud of me. So I appreciate that very much. I just wanted to say this is something that we wanted to be an opportunity for us to be transformational with those American Rescue Plan dollars, and this is something dollars, not daughters, dollars, and something that I think is going to have a long-lasting impact. And I think it also is an opportunity for us to raise awareness of the numbers that you shared. That's why I asked for them, because I think people need to understand the need and the urgent need and why this is important for our communities. And so I want to thank you all for your work and how important this is. And it touches my heart, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity to share, to support this. So with that, I'll ask Lorenda if she has anything she'd like to add.
I think the way this community came together with the ARPA Rescue Plan dollars and really looked at transformational projects has been outstanding. This is a late-breaking opportunity to participate in something that is really meaningful to the community. And so we appreciate everyone who's reached out. We have far more requests than we have funds available. This one was just a really obvious need. And so thank you for providing more information today, and Laura for following up. I know Aaliyah was ill today, and she's done a lot of the legwork on this, and so we thank her as well.
Great. Well, again, thank you all for being here, and thanks for hanging in there for the long presentations on property taxes. I'm sure you all thought that was just as educational if you learned something too. So, but we appreciate you being here today. So I will ask Commissioner Kafals to read that motion so we can approve that resolution.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone. And glad we mentioned Aaliyah. She's the person on the ground doing all this. Well, along with you, of course, Laura. I move to approve the resolution of the Larimer County Board of Commissioners expressing intent to provide funding to assist with the construction of supportive housing for individuals with intellectual disabilities.
Great. Any further discussion or deliberation? Okay, all those in favor of approving this resolution for the Larimer County Board of Commissioners expressing the intent to provide funding to assist with the construction of supportive housing for individuals with individuals with intellectual disabilities. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. 3-0. And we thank you, Laura, for your work, and thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Have a great day. We'll move on now to our portion of our county manager update.
Thank you, Commissioners. So as you can imagine, a great deal of the last week was spent talking about the budget, trying to figure out what the final numbers might look like. We will be adopting the budget on the 14th, and for the first time that I can recall, we're adopting the budget and the rates at different times. And so we're doing that for the public because the county needs to be able to make payroll and write checks to vendors on the 1st of January before we have the mill levy certified. And so that's why we're a little off cycle this year. But the commissioners do have the ability to amend that budget should something drastically change. I also had a chance to attend new employee orientation, something I really enjoy every month. I only get about 10 minutes, but it's really nice to come a little early and talk to the folks who have joined the county. They're from all departments and offices, and it's really exciting to hear why they came to work for the county and what kind of difference they think they can make in the community. And it's a great group that we had this month as well. I also participated in the legislative lunch that you all hosted with our state delegation, and that is always great to be able to hear what they have in mind and to be able to express concerns the county has. I know you all were very well engaged in that and will continue to be throughout the session. We attended all together the Brendan Unit Award, Community Service Award, where Lori Hodges, our Emergency Management Director, was recognized. It was good to see such a good turnout among her staff and friends and supporters of her both personal and professional work life. And then Commissioner Shattuck McNally and I were invited to speak to the civilian supervisors at the Sheriff's Office. They had a lot of questions about interactions with the county, and I think they're working to be more engaged outside of the Sheriff's Office, and that was a real treat to be able to spend an hour or so with them answering their questions about county government. And then finally, I met with Windsor Town Manager Shane Hale. We meet from time to time to coordinate on things the county and the town have in common. It's always nice to talk to Shane and to talk about what Windsor is up to. So those are the highlights of my week.
Thank you, Lorenda. Appreciate all your work. Colleagues, have any questions for Lorenda? Okay, we'll start with Commissioner Kafas for your reports, activity reports.
Well, in the interest of time, I'm actually going to pass. A number of the things, or a few of the things that I would have mentioned have already been mentioned. So I appreciate those reminders. I'll just pass.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, I'll be brief too because we are looking at a executive session after this, but just wanted to highlight just a couple of transportation things that happened, some pretty exciting things in the transportation world. Last week we did the ribbon cutting for the lanes on I-25, so the third lane, which will ultimately be a toll lane, but I think you'll have around 6 months to use that lane without being tolled. I used part of it yesterday to get to Denver, and it was really nice. So the governor and CDOT Director Lou came down to help us celebrate the opening of those lanes, and they'll also be able to accommodate the bus staying better with the mobility hubs. So that was really exciting. I had 5 transportation meetings in the past week, so it's been on my mind. But the second good news is that the state was awarded $500,000 and admitted into the rail. Oh gosh, now I won't think of the name, but it's the corridor program. So we are acknowledged as our state is acknowledged as one of the states that plans to have passenger rail, and being approved in the corridor program allows us to really ramp up and be eligible for grants that come up. And so we have a head start because I think we'll be able to use some of the existing rail that we have right now to be able to accommodate passenger rail. So exciting movement in the passenger rail. We met with the FRA director yesterday and the governor to talk further about plans, but I think that there's a lot of momentum in the space, and I think residents in Larimer County have been talking about rail for decades, and so I think there's some really exciting movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to try to be brief as well. I just want to share a few things that I think were really important. Again, I want to thank, we had that state delegation. I want to thank the students from CSU, the student leadership from ASCSU who came and participated, and appreciate their engagement. And I did hand deliver 2 copies of the legislative agenda that they were very glad to receive, and they'll be using in their endeavors at the state capitol. Again, thank you to all the folks and the guiding principals champions who helped select Lori Hodges for the Brendan Unit Awards. That was really meaningful, and I really enjoyed that ceremony, and well-deserved recognition to Lori Hodges, and thank you to her team for nominating her. That's really important. Yes, Lorenda, thanks for sharing that. It was quite an engaging conversation. They asked us some questions. We were there an hour and a half, and I just want to thank them for asking us to come talk with them and for engaging. And we had some great conversations, and I appreciate it very much. Also, we had we were invited to the downtown holiday party for the downtown Fort Collinsville, the DDA, and met some new business owners, and they were really engaging and asked a lot of questions. And one of them said, "I'm sorry, I don't know what a county commissioner does." And so we had a great conversation. Other people joined in, and it was just cool that people wanted to learn and ask questions and then learn more to understand before making a judgment. And I just want to thank them for their thoughtful interaction, and it just really made me feel welcomed. We had the ribbon cutting. Congratulations, Commissioner Stevens. You had a great speech. It was great to walk up with others and walk up the pathway and check out the new bus drop off, and thank Transportation Commissioner Jim Kelly for coming and joining us, and our state reps Andrew Basenecker and Kathy Kipp for attending as well. We had I attended. One of the things I wanted to share was I didn't get to see the Office on Aging fast forward screening because I was at the Pulse end of construction open house. So Fort Collins Pulse is accelerating that they have built out through the entire city. As you know, they're a very valuable partner in our No Co-Fire Alliance, and they are now listed as the second fastest ISP in the country. And it was really a lot of fun to talk with folks from the city of Loveland, and appreciate the mayor being there too, and want to congratulate Brianna and Lindsay and their team for a job well done. And also thank you to Mark Faffinger and Dietesco and Chad from Fort Collins Connection for their partnership. This is really great work we're doing, and I'm really proud of it. And then on we had a mental health task force meeting for subcommittee. That work, just wanted to share with my colleagues that work continues as we're trying to find solutions and how we engage and help connect everyone and work together as we try to address this urgent need in our community. And I think that's all I'd like to share. There's just a lot going on, and I appreciate all the opportunities that we get to connect with folks in the community, especially at this time of year. So, one other thing. I attended the regional issue summits from the North Colorado Legislative Alliance, and that was at our ranch at the Blue Arena, and it was a packed house. Almost our entire representative delegation was there, and there were some great presentations, and just appreciate that engagement. And Evan from our Workforce Development Center was there with others, and and then they all came over for the ribbon cutting. So it was a great opportunity to connect and listen to some of those presentations about concerns of some regional issues that they wanted to present. So thank you, and that's all I have. So now, Commissioner Stevens, I will ask you to move, to make that motion to move us into executive session, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that this board goes into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6, 402-4B, conferences with an attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice regarding court case number 22 CV 30320, Daniel Roth versus Larimer County.
Thank you. And just before we make this motion, I just want to let the public know no decision is expected. We will not be returning online or be coming back on broadcasting. We'll go into executive session and will not be returning. So just want to make sure that is clear. So any further discussion on this motion that's on the table, colleagues? All those in favor? Aye. All right, we're in executive session. Thank you all for joining us today. Happy holidays, and we appreciate you joining us today. Take care.